Another year, another South American chairman. But little changes in the way the Gibraltar issue is dealt with at the UN. This year, it was Venezuelan Rafael Ramirez Carreño who sat at the head of the Committee of 24. He was congratulated on his position by the Chief Minister, but that's as far as the pleasantries went. It was a session originally meant to take place at 9 a.m. and then again at 3 p.m. But because of a rather heated exchange on the issue of Western Sahara, the Chief Minister didn't actually get onto his feet until about 5:30, close to the end of the session itself. Fabian Picardo launched straight into a list of indictments of the committee, which included dereliction of duty, the suppression of rights of the Gibraltarian people, and of mistakenly suggesting they weren't empowered to visit Gibraltar because of a territorial dispute.
Well, nothing new. I think I'm the third Chief Minister of Gibraltar to come and do that. It's important that the committee does not think that it can get away with acting outside the provisions of the Charter, acting outside the provisions of other aspects of UN law, and that we're not going to spot it and we're not going to come and correct the record by pointing that out. Joe did that in Managua, in the Nicaraguan aspect of the seminar that the committee had 2 weeks ago, and I've come and ensure that we get that point across, we get it on the record of UN TV, we get it on the record of the archives of the C24.
Mr. Picardo said it had been 50 years since the UK challenged Spain to test its sovereignty claim before the International Court of Justice. And Spain still hadn't done so, because it's an argument they know they cannot win. He accused the committee of conspiring with Spain to deny Gibraltarians their rights. In a reference to an earlier report in which the committee's press team had highlighted its PR campaign, Mr. Picardo said Gibraltarians wanted less movies, less murals, less press releases, but more action. In her address, Francisca Pedros, the representative of the Spanish mission to the UN, laid Spain's main argument once again, that the Gibraltar question should be resolved bilaterally between the UK and Spain and according to the principle of territorial integrity, over and above the question of self-determination. She said Gibraltar's government was now acting irresponsibly by allowing tobacco contraband, blocking Spanish fishermen from plying their trade, and allowing the proceeds of international terrorism to be laundered through its opaque finance centre.
Well, look, I think every Gibraltarian hearing that would have felt like I felt. I was utterly disgusted at the allegation. It made my stomach turn, and frankly, I must tell you, to hear it from a representative of the most corrupt government in Europe is really, frankly, evidence enough that what they're trying to do is deflect from their own problems, deflect from the way that they have raped the Spanish exchequer for their own purposes, because if they can be accused of anything, it's of using the Spanish financial system to launder the proceeds of corruption, which is the theft from the Spanish taxpayer. And anybody who knows Gibraltar, any objective third party assessing Gibraltar for transparency, for ensuring that we don't allow the financial system to be used for the purposes of money laundering, will know that it is absolutely untrue of Gibraltar. The European Commission has said it's untrue of Gibraltar. The OECD has said it's untrue about Gibraltar. 2 months ago, Philip Hammond, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, said Gibraltar was the example to follow, not some territory to be berated. So that what you've heard, I think, are the last remarks of a dying regime that will either win an election or not be able to form government after the 27th, but is likely to see all the characters change. And this was one particular character's last attempt at leaving an indelible black mark on our record.
In his intervention, the chairman of the SDGG said the Spanish lies and fabrications can easily be disproved by a fact-finding mission from the committee to Gibraltar. Richard Buttigieg said the committee would be able to see for themselves how Spain harasses citizens at the border, flouts the International Convention of the Law of the Sea, and how Gibraltar manages its finance centre successfully and according to international standards of transparency.
Yes, in fact, that's one of the benefits that I think in particular applies to the SDGG being a petitioner. Because of the process of the seminar, the Gibraltar government speaks first, then Spain speaks, and by us speaking last, it gives us at least an opportunity to counter some of what Spain says. As you heard today, they've accused us from being a centre of money laundering for terrorist activities to being the propagators of tobacco smuggling and several other things that they've said. So at the very least, it gives us the opportunity to try and correct that. And as you well spotted, I had to sort of off the cuff say a few things that I either noted whilst they were speaking or just thought about when I was speaking myself. The thing is, always one has to be conscious of the 10 minutes that you have to speak, so you can't say as much as you might actually want to say.
Mr. Buttigieg also challenged the committee to once again tell Gibraltar what it needs to do to be delisted, a question which has remained unanswered for 10 years. Both the Chief Minister and Mr. Buttigieg posed the looming threat of a potential Brexit and the impact this would have on Gibraltar. They, however, stressed that no matter what happens, its people would remain steadfast and never give in to the Spanish threat.
The C-24 has to visit 2 non-self-governing territories every year as part of its fact-finding mission. And at today's session, they were actually discussing which territories to visit. That's before they came to the issue of Gibraltar. Now, unfortunately, as the Chief Minister himself observed, neither of those 2 territories is likely to be Gibraltar. Jonathan Sacramento, GBC News, New York.